everything from questions about cucumbers to homes on cul-de-sacs, you've come to the right place. Welcome to the Ask Mr. Greenthumb and Real Estate Show with Stan DeFreitas, the dad, and James DeFreitas, the son. For the next hour, call in with your questions in gardening, growing your favorite veggies, and growing your profits in real estate. Locally, call 813-289-1860. Toll free 877-969-8600. And now, your hosts, Stan and James DeFreitas.
And I am the dad, Stan, and you are?
And I am James DeFreitas, and each and every week we sit here and we talk about gardening and or real estate. A lot of times that we get the question, well, okay, gardening or real estate, but why the gardening and real estate? Well, again, when you really think it through, you really start to care about your garden when you own real estate. And that's really the connection point that really drives these two topics together. It's not the same as, trying to have a hair salon and bait tackle out the back. I think they go together a little better than that.
Sure.
And so that's why I mention it. But we do have some people that have questioned, what are we doing there? Those are such big topics. You could do one or the other, and it would be okay on their own.
Sure.
And so I mentioned that. But anyway, so, we were going to start the show out talking a little bit about gardening.
All right.
And we're getting into the hotter times of the year now. And so what might people be thinking about growing as we start to get into the constant rain shower every afternoon and we start to get into the 90-plus degree heat?
Well, the best time to plant, of course, is when you've got a shovel in your hand.
Right.
The next best time is, getting the right variety. Now, I was talking to our buddy Bruce the other day, who we knew from Brandon.
Bruce Moles.
Yeah, nice guy. And
also an auctioneer.
He's done a lot of work with being a bid spotter, too.
Mm-hmm.
And probably doing more of that now these days. But
Good guy.
His question was, with tomatoes, can he put the big ones in? And I said, probably not. As we start to get hotter, you're probably going to do better with the little cherries, the little strawberry types, the little patios. They'll still set fruit as we get into a higher night temperature. I said, but if you go with the real big ones, like Flora America, you're going with some of the real big varieties going into the summer, when it gets really hot at night, a lot of these big boy tomato won't set fruit. So you get a fairly good looking plant, but you're not going to get much for production. So as we get into the hotter and hotter times, and I would think maybe I know most people from north have never eaten collards. It's not a northern thing to eat. But if you've ever tried collard greens and give it a shot, you'll find that they're pretty good. Now I see, Chick-fil-A and other places are having collard salads, or at least some of the kale salad, which is very similar.
Sure.
But if you so you might expand your horizon just a little bit. Some of the peas can be grown still, some of the snap peas, some of those. So you might consider growing some things, mustard greens possibly.
Sure, if it's green. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest complaints that I see in most people's diets. And it was something that I just had a doctor's appointment yesterday. And my doctor was asking me, how much are you eating on the greens? And I said, not that much, Doc. And he goes, like to see you to incorporate that more into your diet, because I've just kind of been doing my own internal polling, and he goes, and it sounds like we're good on the protein. He goes, we seem like everyone's got the protein thing going, but we seem to have forgotten some of the fundamentals.
Sure.
And he goes, I'd like to see people get back to some more greens, the lettuces, and he says that they've really a lot of antioxidants, a lot of anti-cancer properties. And he says, and I'd like to see people get back to that.
And it should be done on a more regular basis. I would agree, because if there's one thing I think that might have helped besides genetics, and I think mine may have been genetics with my heart problem, is that it's easy to go by Mickey D's or Wendy's or any of the fast food places, and God love them, you can get a salad there sometimes, but it's you can't seem to get the small salads much anymore. It's more profit than the real big ones.
Sure.
And so the only problem there is that a lot of people, and I was probably guilty, some nights it's easier to get a burger and a fry.
Sure.
Than it is to go home and cut up carrots and celery. And so I'll admit that there are times that I probably could have eaten something healthier. But it's just like, well, it's just tonight. Boy, the burger tastes good. So, the fries are nice and oily. Doesn't that help?
Right.
Isn't the potato a vegetable?
Sure.
And it is, but I think there is too much of a tendency
Well, and again, I think people get into this, well, it's easy, I don't have any time, and, I got to do what's quick and easy, and I get it, but the one thing I will say, and I've heard this said, well, I can't afford, in terms of costs, I can't afford to eat healthy. And I think the thought is it should be thought of in reverse. You can't afford not to eat healthy, because the long-term consequences of not eating healthy really are going to be that you're going to have to go to the hospital. You're going to have type 2 diabetes. You're going to have these problems that are going to adversely impact your health in such a fundamental way that the quick and easy meal that you grabbed for actually caused you long-term permanent problems that you may not be able to solve, without having to see lots of doctors, lots of medicine, and other things that, impact your life in a very expensive way.
I would agree with that.
It's not cheaper to go to the hospital because we have dietary problems, and yet we seem to have a society where we constantly push the cheap and easy. And I get it. Hey, I sometimes throw something in the microwave, and I'm looking at the microwave going, wow, I'm hungry. 3 more minutes? What the heck? This is taking too long.
Sure.
I need to eat now. But in the reality of it is we really do need to think about it more in terms of the long view, which brings me to my next point, which is, your heart for garden. You're the idea that you're going to write a gardening book that's going to incorporate horticulture and everything that you've learned through this heart transplant process. So, and I think that's the tentative title, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
Heart for Gardening. I'm going to bring a little gardening into it. Mostly, I'm going to probably go over a little autobiography of me, but also my experiences, terms I didn't know.
Sure. That
I learned while I was in the hospital. I mean, even in the hospital, I find it sometimes as you're going down and you see another heart patient going the other way. It kind of reminded me of, I used to ride, motorcycles on occasion, and you kind of give somebody a wave as you go by, like, you're a fellow motorcycle person. You don't take your hand off long, but you kind of wave at the guy.
Sure.
And, and I had a big gull wing and stuff, which people go, nah, we can't see you on a big gull wing. Yeah, well, I had 1,100, I think, cc's. It would get up and move, and I had a seat for the back, so, I could take Mrs. Greenthumb along, and had a radio, had shocks, I had more stuff than some of the cars I've had.
Sure.
But, always amazes me that we'd kind of wave at each other as you went down the hallway, because, they're going either for some bad test or you're going back from some test. And to me, it was at least a camaraderie, or I would give a thumbs up.
Sure.
And universally.
So you're talking about your patient-to-patient
access to people.
Got it.
But I will also say the nurses were important in that there are a lot of great nurses at Tampa General Hospital, both men and women, who were great about trying to be helpful to you.
Sure. And so, just to kind of follow up with this book that you're writing, and that I guess I'm helping to provide some of the data on this book as well. You've drafted me into it.
I did, as I usually do on most major projects.
And I'm perfectly suited to that task, since I'm very much the facts and figures kind of person. That's just how my brain's wired. But one of the things that I think that people, and the reason I really like the concept of this book is, how many people in the United States are going to have some kind of heart problem sometime in their life? It's kind of, in my mind, and maybe this is a little too generalized, but it's like, how many people are going to have back pain sometime in their life?
Almost everybody.
Almost everybody. And what I really like about this book is, if you're going to include, maybe at the end of each chapter, a recipe, a heart-healthy recipe that people can use, it's no longer just a talking point. You can now get people to think, and I shudder to think how long this book could be if we're not careful in making sure we keep it very tidy.
Encyclopedia Britannica.
Yeah, but again, as we've said in previous shows, if you can go through and define some of these terms that we've had to become intimately familiar with in the heart transplantation process, it really could take a lot of the fear factor out of it and make people feel much more comfortable with the process. Because you and I have said this multiple times, getting a heart is a little bit like climbing Mount Everest. there's the base camp, and then we're going to the second summit area, and then we're trying to go for the summit. I mean, it is as complicated as that is, and then some. And then there's the factor that there's very few people who have done it. And the same goes with that. So, I mean, there's only been 1,465 heart transplants at Tampa General Hospital, and you were the 1,465th heart transplant. Who knows? By now, maybe there's another
probably
one.
A couple few behind me, I'm sure.
Yeah, there's probably a few more that have come since, and God bless them, But at the same token, that experience is valuable, and being able to communicate that experience, which is one of your major skills that you have either born with or have learned to have, is to communicate your experiences so that everybody can benefit from that. It doesn't make any sense for any of us to go through this life and not share what we've learned.
I think if I can help save one life, we can get one person to donate their organs. If something should happen to you, I think most people are donors, and I know I've been for 30 plus years.
Yep, me too.
And why not help someone else if you can? When I was talking with Bill, one of the guys who had a heart transplant done about 23 years ago, back at that point, they didn't have any L valves,
LVADs.
LVADs, I meant. And thanks for the correction. And he said people died.
Sure.
I mean, either you got a heart or you didn't.
Or you didn't.
And today, of course, there's a lot of other options that you can have, which we could talk about on the other side if you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stay with us as the Plant Talk, Garden Talk, and Heart Talk continues.
Want to talk real estate auctions? Call James DeFreitas at 727-254-7127 or go online at aflre.com.